In this video, we're going to look at two different ways we can sew together our pieces of work when we're working up against a cast-off edge. So the first thing that you want to do, regardless of the technique, is to make sure that your pieces are lined up nice and neatly. In this case, with stockinette stitch, you want to make sure that your V's are facing each other and that your cast-off edge is lined up. We use our darning needle to sew the pieces together. So first things first, grab a length of yarn and your darning needle and thread the needle. We recommend that you use a length that's not too long. You may need to use multiple lengths, but it will mean that your wool stays intact, it won't break, and it'll keep the edges nice and neat. So the first technique we're going to use is where we will sew together from the first stitch directly after your cast off stitch. So effectively you'll be hiding the cast off of each piece. You're going to use your darning needle and you're going to go in behind each stitch. So you'll collect the 2 bars of each stitch on your darning needle, and then you'll collect the corresponding 2 bars of the other piece on your needle as well. So if we look at that, our darning needle will go into and underneath the first 2 bars of the first stitch. And then you want to line that up directly with the same spot on the other piece. And then you'll repeat that into the next stitch. So underneath the 2 bars in the row directly below your cast off. And repeat that on the other side. And you can see when you pull that nice and taut, you've tucked underneath the cast off row and you get a nice neat edge where your stitches will butt up against each other from each piece. Just continue that method for the entire length, making sure that you're always going into the row directly below the cast off and that you're collecting both bars of the stitch and matching that up or aligning that with the corresponding stitch on the other piece. The other method that we can use will show us going into the top of your cast off row as opposed to the stitch directly below it. So in this case, you want to make sure again that your work is lined up nice and evenly, that the right side of your work is facing upwards. And again, we'll grab a length of yarn, not too long, and we'll thread it through our darning needle. Now in this case, we're going to actually work into the top of each of these stitches. So what you're looking for here are the 2 bars that sit in between each of those cast off stitches. We're going to pick up each of those bars for each stitch with our darning needle and then pick up the correlating bar on the other piece. So you're going to pick up the 2 bars on the first stitch of your first piece and then find the 2 bars from the first stitch on your second piece and pop your darning needle in underneath those. And then back to the first piece, kind of like tying up your shoelaces. You're going to go from one piece to the other into each stitch, picking up both bars. And as you can see, once you give that yarn that you're using to thread them together a bit of a tug, that seam becomes invisible and each piece butts up against each other really nice and tightly. This second method of sewing two cast off pieces together is a little less bulky than the first, which may be a preference for some. And it creates a slightly different pattern, so you can see that you get the sides of each of those cast off stitches sitting up against each other.